had to find out why it helped me so much, because just before it helped me so much, it damn near killed me. And it wasn't the cannabis, it was the contamination. And then once I went ding, ding, ding-a-ling about that, the researcher in me kicked in and I had to figure it all out. Once I started figuring it out, I learned about podcasting, and ooh, that sounds like fun. So for almost 6 years, I podcasted about cannabis, and I started getting LinkedIn doctors and nurses, green ones, to come on my podcast and talk. So many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people, and they're telling the real shit about cannabis, but it's real sciencey stuff.
Welcome to Season 5 of the Cannabis Truth Podcast. Your host is Honey Smith Walls, author of the new book, Healing Beyond High, Cannabis Truth, a gentle, practical guide for elders to learn cannabis fundamentals safely and effectively without overuse or overwhelm. In a world where the FDA has yet to stamp its approval on this ancient natural remedy, Honey Smith Walls bridges the gap between Western healthcare norms, uplifting benefits and relief through gentle cannabis plant therapies. Join this 21st century cannabis shaman, uniquely positioned to assess the green intentions of medical, farming, and business industries in cannabis, and uncover fascinating historical, political, scientific, and spiritual facets of the plant.
Where did I meet you? Was it at Cannabis Public School?
Oh, no, we haven't met. This is our first ever chat.
It just can't be.
It is. It's our first ever chat, and I'm so delighted. We've spoken on LinkedIn, but that's it. We get to experience each other for the first time.
Well, this is thrilling for me. And just so our audience knows, you're way over in somewhere else, some other continent. I think they call it Australia.
I am. I'm coming to you from the land down under. And something I haven't told anyone, I thought the other night I made dinner and I made kangaroo stew. And it's not uncommon that kangaroo meat is sold in our supermarkets and it's delicious. But I thought to myself, my American friends are going to get a kick out of this, and I haven't told anyone yet. So here you go. You're the first to hear a real Aussie.
Thank you. What else is in the recipe of kangaroo stews? Potatoes, carrots, and onions, and
exactly. And then I got some. Actually, I made pumpkin. I roast pumpkin separately, and it was kind of rough mashed, and then I mixed it through, so it was beautiful and sweet. And
wow.
And it is summer here, but I think it's always stew weather.
Pardon me. Is kangaroo a little musky like our deer meat can
be?
Okay.
Exactly. It's very gamey. It's very protein rich, very dark. Yeah, it's quite like, I've had venison before. It's quite like venison.
Okay. Yep. That's it. All right. Well, you heard it here first. She just had cooked up some kangaroo stew. I can't wait till, I get an invitation to that table.
A standing one is yours.
So tell the audience, won't you please, darling, who you are, what you do, and how come I find you so fascinating?
Oh my goodness. Well, the first, I can answer the last one and say I'm not sure, but it delights me to know that. My name is Melanie Wentzel. I'm an Australian. I have been in the cannabis industry for 2 years as a professional, but I've been a cannabis patient in Australia. We don't have a recreational or adult use market. So I've been a cannabis patient for over 3 years, coming up on 4 years. And I've had a recreational relationship with cannabis since I was 15. So for a good 30 years. So right. I am old cannabis. I'm a cannabis person. I'm a 420 friendly. And that obviously goes, your relationship with cannabis changes. It's dynamic throughout your life. So I've had that kind of on again, off again relationship, like so many of mine, with cannabis. But I've been working as a professional in industry for 2 years, which has been an incredible journey. I kind of wear 3 hats at this point in time. I'm the healthcare strategy and programs lead for Canam, a medical cannabis company. We do a lot of research. We have product and clinics. And that's what pays the bills, and I love it because that's where I get to do my day-to-day work in the industry that touches patients. I'm also a consultant, so I do a lot of, and in fact, in 2 years consulting, I've worked with now 30 different cannabis companies in Australia, the US, and the UK. So yes, so many.
My goodness.
Some for an hour, some for 4 days a week for a year. So it's really varied, but I've learned so much on that journey. And I'm also an author, and I have just written the amazing book, Cannabis Queens, which celebrates us, the women in cannabis, and that's launching at MJ BizCon.
That's how I found you.
Oh,
on
yes.
LinkedIn because of your happy posts about launching your book and being at MJ BizCon.
I'm so excited. And
wait just a second. Girls, audience, everybody, I just want to celebrate this woman who is doing so much for so many people around the globe, not just in her own neck of the woods, but really around the globe. I can't believe you got to go to MJ BizCon.
And do you know what? And I'm like, I don't tell them I'm so shocked by it because it's amazing. But I'm on the program. I'm speaking. I'm the only Australian speaking, as far as I know. It's so exciting, and it's the best bit is that the panel that I'm speaking on it's a wonderful panel. It's called Women Who Are Making an Impact in the Global Industry and the Opportunities That Lie Ahead. So not only do I feel really honored by having the opportunity to speak on that particular panel, but I get to share my insights from I did 75 formal interviews for the book. And I surveyed a global survey with 212 responses from everywhere. I mean, Kenya, Colombia, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Malaysia, everywhere. So I get to share those insights, which is so great because magically this year I've become the holder of all these stories. I mean, some really spicy stories, which are anonymized.
Makes you a leader of leaders, honey.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's a real honor, and it's a real privilege, with the book. Shall I share my publisher journey with you briefly?
Oh, please.
Yeah, because it's interesting.
Do you know that I'm following directly in your footsteps and working with my publisher to, birth my own baby, and so I can't. I'm just so honored that you'll even talk about all this because it's, first of all, it's so juicy for women to be able to understand the process and the formula and how it goes, but to see an actually successful author who's already been through it and going to talk about it now. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. And I mean, it's not, it's a story of, let me preface it like this. Everything we see people doing in the world, certainly through my lens, looks amazing. Like, I can't believe she's doing that. I can't believe she achieved that. That's amazing. That's such a world away from anything I could ever do. But the truth is, everything is just skills-based. Once you know how to do it, once you peek behind the curtain, it's all very simple. And so I'm not a gatekeeper in terms of that knowledge and experience. I would rather tell everyone, and I am very happy to speak about all the times I've tripped over and fallen and grazed my knee during this process, because that's what makes it actually real and relatable. And they're the real learnings, right? If I say to you, it was such a smooth journey and, I didn't nearly lose my mind while running, like I would be lying. So, but the truth of it is, with publishing, I have a lot of respect for publishers, and But the truth is that publishers are just people who have chosen book publishing as their profession and have worked hard to learn those skills.
Yes.
That's it. It's just like a doctor.
Yeah.
Great respect for medicos, but they're just people like everyone else who have dedicated their career to learning those skills. It's the same as anyone. With publishers, you know, it feels like, oh, a publisher, this is the greatest thing. But actually, so many people who are writing books are, yes, there's self-publishing, and that's actually the journey I've landed in, you know, not voluntarily, but I'm making the most of it. Life handed me lemons. I've made a cocktail out of it. But you know, I had a publisher, and I thought when I got my publishing deal, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I feel so seen. I feel my story is valid. You know, this is really exciting. And the publisher that I chose, I had published a story in an anthology of theirs before, so they were known to me. So, but in the end, the punchline is they dropped me 6 weeks before this book was to launch because, and I quote, "We are no longer comfortable publishing a book about cannabis because we're going to do some business in the Middle East and we're worried we'll be thrown in prison for publishing your book."
Well, that's an historical excuse, isn't it?
Right. And even if you take back that piece about their justification of it, this is a female-based publishing house who pride themselves on female entrepreneurs and change makers. And, you know, their whole thing is women supporting women. But the minute it got uncomfortable for them, they abandoned me with my story that I had spent months and months and months and months and they didn't just abandon me, they abandoned the 200 women whose stories or photos appear in this book. So and it all happened very quickly, unannounced. I got a message on WhatsApp. It was very informal. I wasn't told what it was about. They called. I was on speakerphone. There were two of them at one end. I was at this end. And I said, hey, I said, ladies, what's this about? Everything's looking really good, da, da, da. And they said to me, you know, oh, we want to talk about the topic of your book, and we just aren't feeling very comfortable about publishing anymore. So I immediately went into business mode. So the first thing I said was, this feels like a Zoom meeting that gets recorded. And also, I would like to acknowledge that you've given me no notice, and there are two of you and one of me. So you've created a power imbalance in this conversation.
Woo! You called it.
Yeah, man. I was like, you don't treat people like that. It should have been. Great. Yeah. You can't do it. So, so we jumped on Zoom, and within half an hour, my contract was void, which was fine. My money, because it's actually a publishing deal, often you pay for, often it's
absolutely. Right.
So, but I got my money back, which was, you know, over $10,000.
Substantial.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. I've self-funded everything for the book because I love, and I would do it all again, and I will do it all again next year. But but we're going to do a series, I think. But within half an hour, it was all done. And I said to them, I was very honest about this. I said, you know, I didn't cry. I was proud of myself because I do, you know, I do get
emotions. It's okay.
Emotions on the outside. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, even in business. But I said to them, you know, I said, I'm blindsided. I said, as a first-time solo author, I actually feel quite hurt and rejected because this is a human. I'm experiencing this as a human,
right?
You know, not just as an author. I said, and
all of that should have been done way up front before you ever did anything.
They had read versions and versions and versions of it. There was it was just a shift, and you know, and then I closed the conversation with, and all you have done, ladies, is proven why my book matters. Mic drop.
There it is. No kidding.
That's
wow. What?
So I'm self-publishing. Yeah.
So, okay. Me too. And I love the autonomy in this. But I do have, I did hire this really amazingly darling little publisher guy who's I just adore and has helped me so much, but he didn't know a thing about cannabis, which was a real valuable tool for me.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, because my book is about using it, practically. And so, anyway.
I can't wait to read it. Ooh.
It's already been peer reviewed by 3 doctors.
Amazing.
I'm tickled about that, really. But it'll be coming out soon, but it's a birthing process, isn't it? You feel your everything growing inside of you like your belly grows. And then you feel the birthing pains trying to get it out because the minutia of details that you have to render to birth this baby is phenomenal.
It's so magical to hear you say that, because that's exactly where I'm at. I think we're very much at the same stage. So I've just gone through and I think it's a natural part of the author process. Last week I've gone through a couple, but last week I went through oh God, this is never going to be great. This is never good. I had my breakdown day. I've had a couple along the process, but I had a little wobbly day last week. But I just said to myself, this is a part of the process, and I related it back to the work I do. So over the last 10, 12, nearly 13 years now, I've been, project managing, operations managing, doing large scale national health reform projects in Australia. That's kind of what my bread and butter has been. And so I've been creating documentation for the government, writing reports to the health minister. So I've experienced that before, but writing my own book in my own voice is like, the process is the same, but the author journey, not the same. Not the same at all. And let me ask you, did you find during the writing of your book, did you find that it was healing? Did you find a piece of healing in that journey? I mean, I did, and I'm interested to know if that's something other people have experienced. Healing I didn't know I expected or didn't expect or didn't think I needed, didn't expect. But this kind of healing piece, was that your process as well? I'm fascinated.
Yes, because I began to validate my own journey and thoughts and education and skills and dreams of what I would, because I had to find out why it helped me so much. Because just before it helped me so much, it damn near killed me. And it wasn't the cannabis, it was the contamination. And then once I went ding, ding, ding-a-ling about that, the researcher in me kicked in and I had to figure it all out. Once I started figuring it out, I learned about podcasting. And, ooh, that sounds like fun because I'm kind of stuck at home. It's COVID. I can't go out and do anything or talk to anybody. So, okay, let's figure this out. So for almost 6 years, I podcasted about cannabis, and I started getting LinkedIn doctors and nurses, green ones, to come on my podcast and talk. So I began, I would just highlight what they're doing and saying. And it's like Cody Peterson and Megan Bang and those people. I mean, just spend
amazing.
Just so many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And and they're telling the real shit about cannabis, but it's real sciencey stuff. So, and my audience is really smart now because they've been listening for a long time. But it's the medical and the science level is just a different level, and so many syllables to have to figure out.
Absolutely, but it becomes your second language or your first language, right?
It does.
When you've been talking about something for so long and when you're embedded. the longer I'm in cannabis, as I say, I've been, old cannabis for a very long time, but the longer I've been in cannabis as a professional and and working with different organizations, working with medicos, working with scientists, working with cultivators, you learn the language, and it's so beautiful, right? Because you can't blossom in this industry.
Yes. I just find it titillating, really.
Well, hello, I'm Dr. Philip Blair, and I want to introduce you to Honey Smith Walls. And she recently had an experience with beta caryophyllene. How's your sleep?
After 7 or 8 days of a seriously healthy 6 to 7 hours of sleep, unbroken sleep, which I hadn't had in way more than a year. That first night when I slept all night, didn't even get up to go to the powder room. And none of my dogs, I have 5 dogs that sleep in this bed with me. None of them awakened me. And it's been the same one night got real busy outside, must have been a raccoon or something. But, that would ordinarily really tick me off because my sleep was so precious. But because I've been getting good sleep with BC Plus, God, 6 to 7 hours at my age, that's just amazing. Hey, will you give us a little history about Australian cannabis?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not, modern history in Australian cannabis is 8 years old. So we've been medically legal for 8 years, 20 years shy of the US. So which is why I'm so fascinated by your markets or your 51 submarkets. I love working in the US because there's so much I can learn and bring back here. So we're 8 years legal in Australia. We only have a medical market. There's no list of approved conditions like there is in the States. There's a list of our regulators. So take a step back. Our system is regulated in 3 ways: by the Commonwealth Government, who create our laws, by the TGA, Therapeutic Goods Administration, and ODC, Office of Drug Control, who are our regulators and implement those laws. The ODC manage how the product moves, the licensing, the actual the physical product and the control of the product, because it is an unapproved therapeutic good here. So our TGA, I guess you could equate it to your FDA. If a medicine is not FDA approved, it can't be prescribed, which is why your doctors write recommendations. Our TGA have got cannabis as an unapproved medication largely. There's some caveats. But we can prescribe it here under a special access scheme, which I'll tell you about in a moment. The TGA regulate patient access to the plant. So the TGA are responsible for managing the system for how patients can access the plant, and they control advertising. Unlike in the States, where you guys have pharmaceuticals advertised everywhere all the time, and I've lived in the States for a short while and I've been back many times, so yes. I've seen it myself. That's actually illegal in Australia. So the advertising of pharmaceuticals just doesn't occur here. And even though, not even though, cannabis is a pharmaceutical, a medicine, but it's an unapproved medicine. So there's certainly no advertising of cannabis in Australia. None. It's very highly regulated, and it's what all of the cannabis companies here who are trying to create access for patients are coming up against in the courts. So the TGA regulates all of that. Sitting under that, excuse me, our prescribers, our prescribers in Australia, you have to be APRA registered, so that's medical board certified. And because APRA oversee the doctors, so APRA are the regulators for medical practice in Australia. Okay. Our most typical prescriber in Australia is a general practitioner. In the US, you call that your primary care physician.
Right.
So you can see I've worked in both markets for a long time.
I'm really impressed.
I'm the health duolingo.
Bilingual.
Exactly. Yeah. And then our nurse practitioners, like similar to the States, our nurse practitioners can also be involved in that process, but our nurse practitioners can prescribe. Yeah, amazing. So there's, in terms of access pathways, there are 4 ways. There are 4 routes for a patient to administer access to cannabis in Australia. 2 are very rarely used. I won't delve into those. The 2 most common are the AP pathway, or authorized prescriber pathway, which is where, and this is doctors only, not open to nurse practitioners. And this is where, if you have some training in cannabis and you have done at least 3 special access scheme approvals for different patients, so which can be done in a day, you apply to the TGA to become kind of an authorized prescriber. Once you're an authorized prescriber, you can prescribe at will, essentially. So you don't need to do individual applications for each patient for each medicine. You can just prescribe like you would almost any other medicine. But the special access scheme, and that in Australia, we call it the SAS-B pathway. Nurse practitioners must use that forever, and doctors pre-AP status must use it. And it's where, if we prescribe I say we, I'm not a medico, I'm a health system professional, but when our prescribers are prescribing cannabis medicines, and we do prescribe down to the product, so it's not like a recommendation and go the 3. So
what's the menu of products look like?
1,300 medicines and counting in Australia. So many. But 70% of them are flour, so dried flour. And our flour comes in 10-gram tubs, is the most typical. There's a couple of differences, but 10 grams of flour. And in Australian dollars, patients pay anywhere between, like, the very low end is kind of $100 for a jar, so $10 a gram. And then at the very high end, you've got about $180 for a jar, or $18 a gram. That's very high. There's some beautiful products sitting up around the $160 mark. So 16, beautiful craft cultivated cannabis, massive terpene counts, bursting with trichomes, beautiful, like amazing. But if it's medicine, and legally and formally it is in Australia, yes, the quality of the flour matters, but it shouldn't. The formulary is a bit political, because obviously within industry we have different players who want their product on the formulary. So everyone's racing to get to the doctors to make them prescribe their product. So it feels a little bit pharma in that way.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
wagging the dog, right?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of that. And we're all working, me included, to find ways to meaningfully educate and train doctors and simplify things for them, especially cannabis naive doctors, because in Australia, only 5% of potential prescribers, doctors and nurse practitioners combined, only 5% of people who can potentially prescribe cannabis in Australia prescribe. Where I would like to see it in every doctor's toolkit.
Is that because they don't know anything about it and they don't know how to prescribe it?
Yes, there's that. There's no real formal education for it. We have education providers, but largely that's coming from the cannabis companies through, medical science liaison. But again, that's like a pharma model. So we're kind of finding our way. The other thing is, of course, stigma. And of course, at doctors, like, if we think about it, I'm from the healthcare system, so I think of everything with a mainstream healthcare lens.
Right.
And doctors, cannabis or not, doctors and all medicos are overworked, under-resourced.
Thank you for saying it out loud.
Right.
Just the system in which they are taught to be a doctor is insane.
Correct. And the demand and the expectation on them is wild. So when we then come along and go, let us teach you about this beautiful, natural, incredible safety profile, medicine, they're like, I can't even take a blood pressure. I'm doing 10-minute medicine, and
my blood pressure is too high to take a blood pressure.
Right.
Yeah, I feel
The
for them. I
other thing,
really do. And I'm really frustrated
absolutely.
our medical system too. It's about to crash and burn.
Oh,
I find them passing off to new, like the emergency rooms were exploding. And so now we've got all these urgent care facilities.
and I do
And
like
that's
the urgent
great.
care model. Yeah, I like that because the pressure, excuse me, the pressure that ends up on hospitals is too high, and the cost of hospitals is too high, whether it's publicly or
Right.
privately funded or funded through insurance.
Right.
And what we do then is we're herding. It's like herding cattle. We're herding everyone into the emergency care system. They don't need to be care. Absolutely. It is my most core belief about a health system that I've spent over a decade influencing and supporting the reform of. It is my most core belief that care belongs in the community. That your local, yes, that your local general practitioner and your local health hub, your local care team should be able to provide care for 95% of the regular care that we need. It should only be true emergencies that go to hospital. But I want to share an interesting distinction with you about the US and and Australia.
Uh-huh.
And the UK as well is kind of somewhere in the middle. So one of my favorite things about your health system, and there are things I love about it. My favorite things is the multidisciplinary team and the person-centered approach to primary care, to when you see your primary physician. And this example I'm going to give is the best example of two health systems that are very different, good and bad in their own ways, but this is where I think you guys absolutely nail it. When you go to your primary care physician, when you go into general practice to your local doctor, you go into a room and the nurse will come and see you and take your obs. So you'll be checked in at reception. Then the nurse will come and see you, take your obs. Then the doctor will come and see you. So you are in one room and the medicos come to you.
Yeah.
We don't do that in Australia. So when you go to your primary care physician, so to me, that is the ultimate implementation of a meaningful model of person-centered care. We literally are physically moving the care around the patient. That, if we could explode that theme into broader healthcare, which is, again, lots of the work I've done over a long time, that's incredible. In Australia, much like in our health system, it's far more fragmented. So I'll go in and I'll make an appointment. I don't usually even see a nurse before I see the doctor. I go straight in and see the doctor. Then if I have to go and see the nurse, I go back into a waiting room. I wait there. Then when the nurse is ready, I go and see the nurse. And then if I have to go and go to a pathology lab, then that's not even on site. So then I come back into the reception, I pay my fees for those visits, and then I go to another. It's very disjointed and very.
What if you have two broken legs? That seems like cruel and unusual behavior to a patient.
Exactly. What if you're someone who's holding a baby? What if it's your child that receives
you're not ambulatory? Or you've got a cannula of air attached to you.
I know.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I was once in hospital, in a public hospital, in a bed awaiting surgery, and I was told in my hospital gown to go down 3 floors to reception to sign some paperwork. In a hospital gown into the emergency entry section. I blew up. I was like, you're kidding. This is not care. So you do in the US, I know it feels very dire sometimes, and I understand that the insurance funded model of healthcare, there's many faults with it. I understand that. But there are some small, beautiful things about how you do care in the US that I admire. I love.
Thank you for saying that. It's so good to hear something nice from somebody in a different country, who has a different system. May I give you one more?
Please,
This
yes.
is one that I really like about my own health insurance at this age, and I'm 70. I get a few more benefits, and one of those is the ability to go see a chiropractor of my choice, and my insurance pays for all but a snippet, $10 of it. And
Amazing.
chiropractics are $100 a whack, and so
Yeah.
I go every week as one of the nice things I do for myself to keep my body, agile and able to move without pain. So, and it really, really helps my attitude and everything. Because boy, you get sore as an old fart and you just can't move. Everything hurts.
I get sore as a young fart. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
I'm not even that young. I'm 45. But I love I've been seeing my chiropractor. So I'm lucky. I don't have any kind of physical ailments overly. I mean, I have primary dysmenorrhea, so I get awful period pain. And I've been in a car accident years ago, but I'm very lucky. My body, operates fairly well,
Mine too. Yeah. Right.
neurodiversity.
Yeah.
Out of scope for that statement. But in terms of my body, I'm very lucky. I have a beautiful, full functioning, healthy body. But one of the reasons that it is so good is because of chiro. I always have engaged with chiro as needed for pain or for whatever here and there over my life. But about 3 years ago, and see the interesting shift. I started using cannabis medicinally 3 years ago. I started seeing my chiropractor 3 years ago. My health journey has been so good. So I go about every 6 weeks to the chiro just for maintenance. And actually, I love my chiro. We're quite good friends. We go and get dumplings, every step. So she's actually great. This beautiful doctor. But chiro is amazing for maintenance on your body, for alignment. Oh, I've got a son who's almost 18, and I'll take him when he's grumpy, when he's very moody. I can see that he's moody. I'll go, how do you feel in your body? And he'll go, yeah, fine. And I go, let's go and see Dr. Jade, and let's just go have a realignment. And what do you know? So that body mind, chiro is great for that realignment physically, but also spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. I'm a huge fan of chiro.
I had a problem when my child was born, and he banged on my pubic bone for a solid 14 hours trying to come out.
Yeah.
And that just did all kinds of stuff to his poor little spine and neck, and it did. And he couldn't pee or poop, and he got this terrible rash all over him instantly, and he just clenched his fists and screamed for the first 7 days. I'm surprised you lived that long. My sister said, who was a nurse and a midwife who had trained in Australia and married one of your famous Australians, said, come on, get in the car. We're going to go to the doctor. And she didn't tell me she was taking me to a chiropractor, and a pediatric chiropractor at that. And I had no idea there even was such a thing. And, he turned the kid over on his hand and went, wah, and I went, wah, and baby peed instantly. And so he absolutely saved my baby. And he told me to come back the next day. Okay. He did it again. Okay. The third day, the baby didn't cry, when I came back. And then he told me that, from all that process, baby had slipped a disc out of his neck and he was suffocating like when a man is hanged. And so chiropractic saved my baby. Wow. And
that's a very powerful story. Yeah. That's amazing.
People can save themselves from I just want to from loss of agility by going to the chiropractor, because your spine and your hips and stuff and your shoulders and neck gets out of whack. Then you stop sleeping well, and then you need recovery. And if you're not getting that, then you're going downhill.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And people find it in different way, in terms of that body connection. So for me,
Right.
I've also used the physio a lot, but for me, physio, I mean, it's just like harder work. The chiro is like in and out, and I do love that. The physio is good. Absolutely. Physios are amazing, amazing. And I think, yeah, but it's a lot of work, a lot of homework. Like, okay. Yoga for me, I think I'm
Oh,
the kind of person people would expect that I love yoga. And I think I love the idea of myself with some imaginary future husband at our imaginary rainforest retreat in our imaginary, tiger print robes, smoking a joint and doing yoga and having, cold brew coffee. Like, I love that idea of me. And I love that that's potentially who I think I would am. And I'll take that entire imaginary scenario, but I'm just going to leave out the yoga. Because I'm not a yoga girl. I grew up in the northern rivers of New South Wales. So I grew up like a hippie, right?
yeah.
Which is the best. And then I've always been a very liberal person. I've always, been, I'm definitely a very liberal person. And an open person, and I've lived overseas for years. I've done lots of things. I've experienced lots of things in life. I lived overseas for 6 years. I left. I said, I'm going to America for 6 months to work at a summer camp, and I came home 6 years later, pregnant
Wow.
and married.
Oh.
I was like, oh, here we go. And so, of course, that didn't last. But the pregnant did, but that's my son, Christian. The marriage didn't. But I've always been quite a liberal person. I've always been a bit of a hippie. I enjoy odd people. I love neurodivergent people. I love teenagers who are kind of awkward and just get their black lipstick on and kind of emo. I love all that. And some of my favorite things in the world, some of my favorite aesthetics or images, I like the idea of, super pregnant brides. And I love the idea of people with a gap in their front teeth. And I love that.
In a
Kind
bikini, right?
I love it, right?
Yeah,
I love that. Like,
yeah.
who do I think are the most interesting people in the world? People like, I don't know, Kid Rock, like, hillbillies. I love the odd things in
Yeah.
life. I love it. And yet I still cannot make myself someone who loves yoga or meditating. And God bless me, I try. I do go.
I can't meditate.
Oh, sorry. There's an ambulance.
That traditional meditational thing.
Yeah.
And I'm a recovering Catholic. I did it for years.
Yeah. Right. I can't get into it. It's not for me, but I have ADHD, so my brain does not stop. So again, yoga and meditation would be perfect for me. It's just not for me. Even if something should be for you, sometimes it's just not for you. My faith, I'm a very spiritual person. I don't prescribe to a particular organized religion, but when I do feel called to go to temple, I go to a Chinese Buddhist temple in my city. So, and I have an altar. You can actually see it through the back there, and I have crystals. And when I need a deity or someone to speak to, I speak to Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of compassion and protector of mothers and children. So I have a faith, but it's kind of it's Buddhist adjacent. But again, still cannot meditate. Still do not want to do yoga. So I'm a complex woman, honey.
Gam Ganapataye Namaha. I'm a devotee of that goofy elephant. And I hate to even mention the story. It's so wild and bizarre, but I just became a devotee after all of the other religions that I've been brainwashed to follow. I liked, I'm still uncertain as to deities, and, I know this shit makes me stutter. Can you see?
It's a hard thing to wrestle with. Yeah, because
you
you're
know,
tapping into your soul. So it's
yeah.
hard. Yeah.
And yet I love the connect. I feel the connection. I feel the connection of the universe now. I feel the connection even after what happened yesterday. I'm in a state of love and grace.
We need to be go. We got work to do.
We've got a lot of work to do, and that's exactly what I said. We've got our work to do. We've got our work cut out for us.
Yeah.
It just means that we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and stay focused. And then I think about that. I don't listen to the news. I had to get it secondhand from somebody else this morning, and that's okay. That's their baggage.
Yep.
You know, even if it affects me, I'm still going to stay focused, do my thing, help women. I've only got another 20 years, 25 years on this planet. I've learned an awful lot. I want to be able to help women rise and, you know, manage our societies for a change, and, you know, do good things, be kind to each other, stop competing, start collaborating.
Yes.
I didn't realize I was going to do, you know, sort of start focusing and veering into just the women's world, but I am. It's just calling me, and I'm just, you know, being dragged into it. I love it. It's so different than having, you know, the men bullying us and gaslighting and all of that stuff. And I love men. I love men. I got a lot of men in my life. I love them. But all that bullshit and baggage I can do without. And when I find that when I'm just with women, we connect on such a much deeper level. Everything's okay to talk. It's all right that I'm a catty, you know, chatty Cathy. It's okay. You know, and I feel like I can get I feel like I'm being heard with a woman in ways that I never quite feel with a man.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like we have not ever had the ability really to lock arms as a society of women and help each other lift from the suffering that has been, you know, that we live through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think now with technology, with social media, that we can connect like you and me. This is absolutely, utterly, fabulously fantastic. I just get chills thinking about who you are and what you're doing, and oh my God, you're on the other side of the world, but then here you are right here with me, and you really get my world too, and I really get your world, and shit, you're publishing, and we're both doing it. It's
so cool. But see, that's for me. I think I feel the same as you. I love women. I love men.
Yeah.
I'm raising a beautiful young man. I'm raising a young man who I watch with his friends, and you know, many of whom, you know, I mean, he's a cis white male raised in a reasonably privileged way, because I'm working hard to give him more than I ever had, because I didn't have the flasher start. And he is so beautiful, and he is a gentle man, and a gentleman in that, not in the sense that he opens doors, although he sometimes does, and sometimes he shoves out in front of me in the lift, but he's gentle in that he and his friends are so beautiful and so accepting of each other. So many of them are using they them pronouns. They're just yeah, so many. He has 2 trans friends in his immediate community that I've watched these young humans go from prep, from you know, kindergarten right through to he's just graduated high school, and I've watched them, their whole journey and their whole transition. You know, he's got friends who are you know, who are very straight and very hetero. He's got friends who are neurodivergent, but what is special is that, and he just goes to a standard state school here in Brisbane, in a major city. It's a kind of It's a non-uniform school. It runs a little bit more like a university campus. It's kind of a bit more forward thinking in that way, but it's just a standard school. This is a standard population of 17-year-olds today in the city in Brisbane. But what's beautiful and so special is how they speak about each other and how they treat each other. You know, it's beautiful. It's magical, because it tells me that I have done a good job. Actually, that's my feedback. I have done a good job of raising him. But even, you know, they're going away for their end of school. We have a thing here when people graduate high school, it's called schoolies, and they all go away with their friends for a few nights somewhere, and they kind of centralize in a few cities in Australia. It gets very wild. But he and his friends have chosen not like the Gold Coast, which is it's kind of like Vegas.
Yeah,
a lot of people go there. He didn't choose that. I was like, yes. He and his friends have chosen the sunny coast, which I guess is more like I'm going to say like Orange County, but very Australian and not quite as rich. So that kind of, you know, a bit more palatable and tasteful. But he's going with a group. I said, oh, who are you getting a house with? Who are you staying with? 5 girls. So it's my son and 5 girls or you know, non-binary people, and they're going to go party, and a whole bunch of them have got houses together. So my point is, with everything that's going on in the world feels very cold and very hard and actually very hopeless in some pockets of time. But I wanted to share, because not everyone knows that this is what 17-year-olds are like. This is what the next generation of people who are coming through. He's going to study journalism. My son is going to be one of the next truth tellers.
Philosopher. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's amazing. So I think even in these dark, kind of really volatile times, and these are volatile times.
Yeah.
I think it's really beautiful to know that the next people coming through are really beautiful for the most part.
Thank you. It's so hopeful. It's really hopeful. It's really inspiring to hear you talk about the way they talk about their friends. That's so important.
Yeah.
You know, the sniping and backbiting that can happen in relationships and crowds, and especially kids, you know, teens.
Yeah, and it's absolutely. And I don't mean to imply that they're perfect. Like, believe me, I've yelled empty the dishwasher like 5 times this week. Like, please don't get me wrong. My son is not a saint. None of them are. But more generally, I think because of the education we've given, because of the stories we tell as women and as people in society, because of the amplification of voices of different races, of gender diversity, of queer culture, I just think we've normalized it to a point where they can be nonchalant about it. And that's their privilege, is to be nonchalant about their gender identity in the best way, because we have created a world where actually that is normalized. And we have done that by moving the cultural zeitgeist within our lifetime. So I can see history in motion, and it is heartening. It is heartening. I am one person who I have a heart full of hope at almost all times. And my hope is for, you know, a lot of my hope and love, of course, is for young people, but is of course for women. And that's where I found my place with the women of cannabis, is that I do the work. I can do the operational, yes, day to day, I'm doing this and signing this off and creating this and creating these protocols. But actually, for me, the joy and love in cannabis is in the storytelling and the telling of women's stories, and the community that comes with that. It's magical.
Wow. Well, I'm getting ready to do a project, and I want to invite you to come into it, and I'll send you all the details about it later.
Please.
But I just want us to do some stuff together, and this might be a way that would interest you in being part of, you know, a project that I'm thinking of, that I'm creating. I'm not thinking about it.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I would love to hear more.
All right. Well, I'll tell you all about it later. And your book is the launch.
Yes.
Queen.
So we are, it's happening as a part of MJ BizCon. It's not an official MJ event, but we're running it right in the middle of BizCon. And I'm so lucky, and I must give kudos to the Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, to Addison Morris, who is the founder and CEO. I am a member of the chamber. I have been for a year. And when the book, when I realized I was going to do the book, I went to Addison and I asked her if she would write the foreword for the book.
Oh, nice.
Right, because I thought, let me think of a woman who has been here for a very long time doing the work. Let me think of a woman who touches the lives and careers of many, many other women. Let me think of a woman who I think, is an authoritative voice, but also deserves to be celebrated and have their moment. And I couldn't think of anyone better than Addison, who at 74 is doing this amazing work. And she has been a revolutionary since she was 18 years old. I mean, she grew up in Blue Springs, Nebraska, and used to read the Berkeley Barb and the Village Voice, So when she was 18 and moved to Colorado, she was already very informed and has been politically active for her lifetime. So it's been a pleasure to have her on the journey with me for the book. And she is now hosting, actually, that's who's putting on my book launch for me, the Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. So what a privilege for, some, knee-grazed, kind of clumsy, wears glasses, dorky little blonde, I'm naturally blonde, chubby kid from Australia, ran around, little tomboy, who has kind of come, grown and blossomed into womanhood and been on a long journey of education and work, and all of it has come to this point where, and I'm going to say it because when I say it out loud, it makes it more real. I've written a book, a hot pink book, about women who I love and admire, and I've shared some of their deepest stories with their permission. And I'm flying to Las Vegas for the Women's Cannabis Chamber of Commerce to throw a party in my honor to celebrate my writing of the book.
That's the most exciting thing I've heard. Wow.
It's wild. It's wild. I would never, ever have dreamt this for myself. And it's, I try and act really cool about it. I'm not cool about it. It's bloody incredible.
How long are you going to
cool
stay
about it at all.
Las Vegas?
Say again?
How long are you going to stay? And do you have friends in Las Vegas?
Well, I'm traveling over solo, but actually, yes, I don't have friends who live in Vegas, but in all of industry is going to be there. So I'm coming for a week, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. You might appreciate this. I'm not sure what your taste in music is, but I personally am a country music fan.
Oh, sweet.
And so when I fly in on the 30th of November. I'm in town until the 8th, so I'll have conference plus time before and time after. But the night I fly in, myself and you might know Jocelyn Prefontaine, post-harvest wizard from Canada, she and I have booked a VIP booth at the front for Shania Twain. So Jocelyn and I are going to be Shania Twaining to
my gosh.
I know, it's wild. I'm like, explain a more wild and amazing life. So,
oh my gosh. Well, that'll be worth the flight over, won't it?
Oh, it'd be amazing. And we spoke about it. She was in Australia recently, and we were having some cocktails by the river and some lobster rolls and having a great time. And we were like, should we just upgrade the tickets? Yeah, we should. And we said, it's the ultimate start to MJ Biz Week, and the week for me to launch Cannabis Queens is we need to hear Shania say, "Let's go, girls." I'm gonna be like,
so awesome. Yes.
So we're talking about like Jocelyn's over there making matching sequin crop tops, and I'm like, I'm so here for it. So we're setting the tone for MJ, and then I'm speaking on the 3rd at the Women's Leadership Forum. Again, unbelievable to me. I'm really excited. And then
you are on fire.
On the 4th. Yeah, I mean, it's my year, honestly. My year.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to follow in your footsteps. I am really tickled to hear what you're doing. Now it makes me understand what I want to do.
Amazing. And I am here for your journey. Like anything that I want to share one more thing about that publishing journey with you, because it's the thing that has made me so confident to self-publish, is that I've had enlisted two people I really trust. A lot of my friends have been, so I want to acknowledge this, because Cannabis Queens it's my heart and soul. It was 4 months of research and interviews and survey, 4 months solid, then 3 months of solid writing. And I have a day job, so I would finish work, have a shower, cook dinner maybe, or order dinner, and then I would sit down and I would write for 8 hours, and then I would go to bed for 2 hours, and I would get up and do my day job. And I did that for 3 months, and all weekend I would write relentlessly. And then it's been 2 months of editing, and now it's at the printer. So it's actually very quick, and it's a massive book. It's 55,000 words. It's humongous, 10 chapters. It's humongous. But it's very much my work and my voice, but I didn't do it alone. So for me, the reason self-publishing worked is because I have a copy editor who I have worked with for my professional writing for over a decade. Every document I've almost ever created, she has edited. She's made me a better writer and better editor. And then I have a designer who I went to and I said, this is my vision for the brand. These are the colors I want. This is how I want it to feel. And he brought it to life. And he was the one who ended up typesetting. So when I lost the publisher, and your publisher includes your editor, your designer, your typesetter, when that wasn't available to me, I called in my trusted people. And then I thought, I'm going to really, really double check. So on the pages that are about the plant itself, I sent them to one of my good friends who's a very passionate grower, very experienced, and I got him to check it. And when it came to the page about the medicine and the science, I sent it to two people who I absolutely trust, a professor and a naturopath, and I got them to check it. So as you can say, that peer review process is important, but it's the one thing. So what I want to say to you is, genuinely, let me be on your support team for that, because I understand the value and excitement. So anything I can do to help you, and we walk alongside together publishing.
I'll regard you as my sister in this process. I can't thank you enough for that. Really, it's a precious gift to me, and accept it.
Good, because that's how we rise together. That's how we rise together. Yeah,
good. All right. Well, I'm really excited that this whole thing with us has happened, and that my audience here can get to understand a taste of what it's like over there in your culture, and how similar we all are, of course, but the whole cannabis platform is a global thing. It's not just here. And and the stigma was global. So getting the education out has just been a real balancing act between what the laws will allow and what people are ready to accept. And so I'm sure you're probably already aware that here, whenever recreation comes in behind the medical program, that the medical program just disappears. And that with the medical program goes any education that there may have been, because cannabis dispensaries are just mostly out to sell the THC, not and to sell the high, not to sell the medicine. They can't take responsibility for you as a patient, and they won't. So they sell with a corporate attitude of, the high is the thing.
Yeah.
And it's
if I
really problematic.
And I've thought a lot about that. And if I may, one of my thoughts on it is, because your medical programs, and I'm quite familiar, with the different medical programs and who can do what in each state. with your medical programs, and yes, when rec comes, medical falls away, and that's the fear that Australia has. We won't go,
Good.
recreational use for 4 year minimum, somewhere between 4 and 6 years. It will happen, but it'll be 4 to 6 years away. And I've been saying 5 years for the past 2 years, so I'm not really changing my number yet. But that's the thing that people fear, but I see it differently. So I see an opportunity when rec comes in to clean up the medical program, because really in Australia, we have a medical program, but it's also an access point for people who have a recreational history. It doesn't mean people aren't using it medically. It doesn't mean it doesn't have great medical value. And it's great for harm minimization, because it's safer to purchase quality controlled cannabis, and it's safer to not purchase it behind the bloody bowling alley, right? Especially as a woman. Especially when we know in illicit market, women are asked for favors in return for drug, right? So for me, that's why I like recreational, because I think as a policy, within society, as a policy that guides and provides structure around that in society, it's safer for everyone. While we don't have it, people often joke and say Australia is the pseudo medical market or the pseudo rec market. Actually, I'm okay with people who really have recreational intention coming into our market. But when we get a recreational market that is overseen and managed and regulated, what will happen is, and my hope, and this is the work that I believe that I will be doing when that happens, is that our rec users will move to rec, and then there's no medical touch point, and that's okay. And then this is a retail story. This is a retail story.
Like liquor.
Yes.
I'd
correct.
like to see the rec bunch move into the liquor system, and the medical bunch stay with the pharmacist.
Right, exactly.
And that way the doctor can say, yeah, you might be a candidate, go see your pharmacist.
Correct. But even more so, I think that the reason that the medical programs in the States, and it's a complex issue, but if I'm to do a broad stroke, I truly believe the reason that the medical programs fall down when rec comes in a state in the US is because the medical program isn't really, except in some cases with some practitioners, it isn't really that medical, because the doctor's not prescribing a medicine.
Correct.
They're simply doing the recommendation because
Correct.
cannabis is not FDA approved. So even the medical system is medical and then recreation, and then really like retail at the dispensary. So when rec comes in, it kind of, all it's doing is demonstrating there wasn't really a very medical system to begin with, because there wasn't the prescribing. And that's not to speak down medical, doctors who work in cannabis in the US and nurses. Oh my God, my God, if I were to build a temple, it would be to bloody cannabis services in the USA. Like, amazing. And patients need that, but the majority it's not. So I think that that's why that happens. And I do think it's the fear of Australia. I don't think it needs to be that way. I think with really good, meaningful implementation, recreational can come in, and the medical system, I actually think we will have better medical programs. We just need people with the right experience, the right passion, and the right voice. And I'm volunteering as tribute industry. So
me too. I think the American medical system will have to be told from the top down. And I think that the people will have to find some means of education. I'm not sure where that's going to be.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to get to a lot of people at this point because of our advertising restrictions and just all kinds of stuff, and life has changed here. We work habits have changed here. A lot of us work from home, and a lot of us don't go out and get in public spaces anymore. It's still, there's still a considerable risk for a lot of people. So, Yeah, things have changed, but I like the way it's going. And maybe online courses are what people may need to start taking as patients to understand why cannabis could help them. But
I
getting
agree.
them to that course is going to be another matter. However, if the
Because,
doctor says, go take the course, because
yes,
people believe our doctors are little gods.
yeah,
You have to do what the doctor says.
yeah. It's so interesting. In Australia, with cannabis, whatever the doctor says to the patient within the clinical consult is okay.
Yeah. Oh,
So the doctor can say anything about cannabis at any point, at any time to that patient, no problem whatsoever. That's good clinical practice, telling your patient lots of things and giving them education. But no one except that doctor or nurse practitioner, are allowed to even talk about it. It's basically a gag order, and I understand it because we wouldn't want people out here. I wouldn't want, fentanyl and endone. I wouldn't want those kind of drugs being pushed as a particular access point to the health system. And I don't think that's what cannabis is, but I understand why people perceive it that way. I mentioned to you, only 5% of potential prescribers in Australia prescribe. And typically they are not, spattered around in general practice in communities. They cluster in clinics in Australia, cannabis clinics. So it's not legal to have a cannabis clinic, like it wouldn't be legal to have a fentanyl clinic or an endone clinic or whatever else. But so the challenge now, people have gotten away with it. There's about 160 cannabis clinics in Australia, most of them telehealth, most of them, light to moderate level or depth of healthcare, some really committed, really medical, high care models. But what needs to happen is we need to distribute that knowledge and that prescribing throughout healthcare, but there's such resistance. So for patients to find access, I'm happy that there are clinics that provide it. And the issue and the challenge and how I've worked with 30 different cannabis companies in 2 years is teaching people who either come because they love the plant, come because they see the green dollar and want to make money, but don't have any medical training, teach them how to provide high-performing primary health care in a cannabis context and do it in a way that's really legitimate. And some just don't have appetite for it and some do, but I can tell you it's keeping plenty of consultants employed in Australia, and that's okay because we're an ecosystem, we're growing, we're learning, and you're right, it has to come from the top down, but the regulators need to be educated as well. And because cannabis has always been of the people, it's always been grassroots upwards. And the work that people have done for 30 years in America, but longer as well, has been so impactful. So we are seeing the fruits of labor. We are seeing the seeds that were planted 30 years ago in America blossoming everywhere in the world. It's just slow, it's dynamic, it's changeable, and everyone is kind of trying to have their slice. It's such a complex world we live in. I find it so stimulating. I love the work we do. I love the work we do.
I do too. We've got a goofy legislator out in California right now that tried to take CBD out of hemp.
Oh, I don't worry, I'm right across it.
God,
Yeah.
I don't know. These yahoos, they got a thing or two to learn, don't they?
These yahoos. I love that.
Oh, girl, tell the audience how they can get in touch with you. Would you please?
I would love that. So one of my favorite ways to connect is on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, you will find me, Melanie Wentzel, spelled with a W, but also Cannabis Queens you will find on LinkedIn. And on the interwebs, you will find me at www.melaniewentzel.com, spelled with a W. And also cannabisqueens.world. And this is where I would love everyone to come. So this is where the book is going to live. This is where our stories are going to live. www.cannabisqueens.world. You can go on now and pop your email in, and soon you'll get the book through there.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it's cannabisqueens.world.
Correct.
to get notice of the book.
Yes, that's right. And actually, book sales will be opening on there very soon. Probably by the time people are hearing this, we'll be open for sale. But if not, because I'm doing everything myself, because we're a self-published author, so I'm still building. Yeah, right. So we do all the things ourselves. But yes, go there, and eventually next year the book will be available in bookstores and Amazon and all that. But for just now, I'm keeping her close to me so that actually I can sign all of the first, few hundred books that go out, and also so that I can include a little gift as well for people when they purchase it. So I want to spread the love.
Fantastic. I can't wait to talk to you more about the process behind the scenes and and all that jazz, and just be sisters together. This is so fun. And I just love meeting you and hearing about your life and your work and how you're making a huge impact in this world, not just for women, but thank you for that. All for everybody else that comes after women is what I'm going to say.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. I have loved this, and I'm so excited to go on our little publishing sisterhood journey. And I can't wait to hear about this new project. And I'm delighted. Thank you to your audience for listening and for giving me the opportunity to take up a bit of space, because people are going to talk anyway. Why wouldn't we put our voices in there?
Why not? We've got a lot of wisdom going on between the two of us, and people are going to want to hear it. So I'm saying it loud and proud. I'm happy to be a sister of you, and thank you for gracing the show and spending all this time with us. I love you, honey, and I'll talk to you on the backside real soon.
Cannot wait. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Mwah.
You've been listening to another Cannabis Truth podcast with 21st century cannabis shaman Honey Smith Walls. It is important to use verifiably safe products and look out for yourself while we're in this wild, wild west of cannabis right now. Ask for help. It can get complicated. If you need serious medical attention, please consult one of the specialists at cannabisclinicians.org. They will get you to the right person and therapy for your issues. Tune in here for weekly foundational knowledge and learn to determine the best choices and cannabis strategies for your issues. But please be advised that shamans are not doctors or scientists. You'll find those at cannabisclinicians.org. Unless otherwise proven by a reputable third-party lab test, please regard all street weed as contaminated. It may do grave harm to a patient with a delicate immune system who already has inflammatory issues like arthritis, IBS, fibromyalgia, or worse. Thank you for your time today.